Welcome everybody to this Dallas Startup Week session on operationalizing AI. We've got one of the nation's great experts in AI with us today, Amelia Flores, who is a distinguished engineer and master inventor with IBM, and we proudly inducted her into the Tech Titans Hall of Fame a few years ago. So welcome, Amelia. I'm Bill Sproul. I'm the CEO of Tech Titans, and for those of you that don't know us, we are a membership association for technology companies based here in North Texas, and we've been around for over 25 years, and we champion and serve the technology community across the region. We've been doing a deep dive around AI over the last several years. A lot of companies that are on our membership that are employing AI-driven strategies. And so we're going to have a good discussion with Amelia today, and I'm going to ask a few questions, and then she's going to show just a few slides, and then I'd like to be able to see your questions in chat and get her to answer them. So Amelia, so HAL 9000 is the kind of generally accepted, prototype of artificial general intelligence. Are we close, or how far are we?
That's a great question, Bill. So for those of you in the audience that don't know me, my name is Amelia Flores. I'm a distinguished engineer and a master inventor at IBM. And I do focus on artificial intelligence across all the markets, all the industries, and help our clients to implement, artificial intelligence solutions. And in response to your question, Bill, you were asking about, AI, AGI, where are we at? And, at IBM, we do tend to classify, three different kind of categories of AI. There's the narrow, kind of a weak use of AI. And then in the middle is more the AGI, which is a little bit more general use of AI and its stronger use of AI. And then there's the super intelligence on the right-hand side. And I would say we're kind of right in the early stages of the middle, right? I think lots of folks have been doing AI and chatbots and all kinds of wonderful things up to now. And we're starting to see more applicable use of AI, for doing a little bit more business and kind of an expanded set of use cases that people are trying to take on with AI to bring in a lot of insight services and things of that nature to really, add credibility to their business. Because bottom line, what everybody wants is to improve their business and make life better for everyone. And having technology like AI can really, really help. Certainly we're a long way away from decisions being made solely by the computer without anyone monitoring them. And so, I'd say we're kind of a little bit, not in the middle, just maybe a little bit before the middle as, a world and society that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and there's been some pretty interesting examples of companies who have pushed the boundaries of AGI, Intel and their model IBM and others. So which industries are you seeing are the early adopters of AI?
Gosh, I'd say all industries. I think COVID has thrown us all for a big loop. What I saw happen in February, March timeframe this year because of COVID is everyone, all industries trying to figure out how do they digitize themselves. And so when I think of AI, I do see it being applied across all of the different markets and industries. I see certainly a lot of, experiences for end users being done like in banking and insurance. Certainly media and entertainment, huge from a, entertainment factor for, customer experiences and really using AI to customize those customer experiences. But then I also see, generators of products like in the industrial market, automobile manufacturers, electronic companies, even chemical and petroleum companies all using, AI in cars, in devices, in their plants, oil rigs, and trying to figure out how to use AI for supply chain management, for, running different parts of their business, all the way into, certainly government and healthcare life sciences were hugely impacted by COVID, right? And I saw, even here in the city of Dallas where, we're trying to get, information out, but it's not good just to throw information out. You really have to analyze that information and have it be intelligent for the end users. So a lot of AI modeling being put in place, a lot of, healthcare trying to figure out how do we come up with new cures for COVID. So a lot of churning of data that's going on. And then certainly in telco, they're at the state where they've got a lot of edge technology. They've got to continue to push the envelope of telecommunications. And so I'd see them kind of at the forefront, not just of the AI, but of the infrastructure and the cloud infrastructure that they're really trying to take advantage of. So across the board, all of the different industries are making some flair of use of AI. And I think we see more and more of that just because of COVID and everything being digitalized.
I was been at several MIT conferences where they talked about kind of the latest advancements in AI and kind of the recovery from what was called the AI winter that kind of the industry went into, and what's got us out of it are these massive data sets, really powerful algorithms, and massive compute power. And you combine those three, and you've got a perfect storm to allow for advances in AI. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah. Certainly here at IBM, we've seen a lot of, traction on AI and small systems, but then there's a lot of traction on larger power systems and starting to get uses of AI in not just crunching of data, but in taking different kinds of data input, whether that be more visual, whether that be, any of the senses, all data kind of coming in. And so you really need the horsepower underneath the covers to really, churn through all of that. And certainly our research teams are really, working with multiple companies, like MIT, to try and figure out like, what are the new things that, a supercomputer like a quantum system will be able to drive and push into the marketplace. And so we even see pilots of people wanting to use supercomputers and people wanting to really come up with new, combinations of drugs, new combinations of materials, new combinations of all kinds of things that these hefty supercomputers will be able to, help scientists kind of churn through all that data.
Right. So we have an audience of startups, and they're going to be interested to know, geez, is AI accessible to me and my startup? Is it too expensive to acquire the tool sets? Should I just plan on building my own? If I'm just kind of starting this and thinking about, my how to operationalize it, is it accessible to me?
Yeah, I think there's probably never been a better time to be a startup, right? I think, when you think of the past, in order to, use a product, you had to purchase a product and, get it, boxed in a little box coming to you, and then you had to install it to get it up and running. And I think, certainly the advent of cloud technology and having everything out in a public cloud has really afforded, startups to be able to get access and get started to technology very easily. Just get on, any of the major cloud providers and get access to their cloud infrastructure. And they have a model of pay as you, as you utilize the services. So you do want to be picky about what are the services I'm going want to be using. You want to do a little bit of experimentation, kind of keeping, your numbers low so that you can get, experience with the technology. But then once you figure out what technology you want to use, start building your products and getting things out there. That's really where, a lot of the cost starts to kick in. But, it's pay as you go and as you use it. So it's no longer you pay X amount of money for a product. It's how many times are you using these services? And that kind of makes it more affordable, I think, for startup companies to get into the AI business and other kinds of technology as well.
Are there a lot of open source AI tools out there that are available for entrepreneurs?
Yes, there's a ton of open source. I sat in a lecture last week on open source technologies just for UI experiences, right? And all those tools kind of really are well afforded to a lot of, entrepreneurs to be able to easily get access to. Now, certainly, some of the open source libraries, you'll need to work with and maybe even enhance, or certainly partner up with companies that have enhancements readily available for some of the open source technology. I know at IBM, we do, partner very heavily with a lot of open source. Certainly we acquired a lot of the Red Hat technology, and we have our own products that we built on top of Kubernetes, so we do and are strongly, pushing a lot of containers, OpenShift technology, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, all those technologies that are open source are really something that a lot of companies want to be leveraging in today's day and age.
Absolutely. Well, audience, I want you to start thinking about the questions that you'd like to ask Romelia and post them in chat. And I'm going to turn it over to her to present a couple of slides that kind of contextualizes this topic. So take it away, Romelia.
And I think I'm trying to remember how I share my slides. And I think I go down here. Here's my video.
Oh, you got it?
No.
Okay. It's on the bottom of your screen. There should be 5 icons. It's going to be the second one from the right. It's a TV with a red line through it.
Okay.
So you click on that, and then you're going to want to share your Google Chrome tab. So it doesn't share your screen, just your tab. Or, yeah. And then for our audience, if you want to see Ms. Flores' slides enhanced, just double click on her slides, and that should make it bigger for y'all.
So are you seeing my slide deck?
I'm seeing
We're seeing your screen. So now we're seeing your slides. So all you have to do is just present it to make it larger.
Good. Okay. So I know one of the things I wanted to touch upon today was, what are the kinds of decisions that a lot of CTOs, these are C-suite executives that a lot of different companies are making today. And this particular set of, capabilities is what we've identified at IBM that a lot of CTOs are trying to make decisions in. So when they're doing their day-to-day job, these CTOs need to, figure out how to best integrate, business with IT. And if you think about, the capabilities that you see here, we typically start at the bottom middle, and we say a lot of, businesses want to be fast, they want to be nimble, they want to be agile. And so hybrid multi-cloud is one of the capabilities that they really are, emphasizing nowadays, because they don't want any vendor lock-in. They don't want to get tied into one vendor, one product, one set of technologies. They really want the ability to be able to move around and consume services as you need them and consume infrastructure as you need it. So meeting demands for peak workloads, for high performance that we would need, and things like AI is one of the key reasons why a lot of CTOs are focused on that hybrid multi-cloud capability. And being able to say, well, at some point in time, I want to use a Amazon set of services or an IBM set of services, and being able to marry those together at some point in time, that's really kind of critical for the, to keep myself nimble and keep myself moving from technology to technology. And the way that most people do those kinds of capabilities, they're starting to restructure applications into what we call microservices and containers. And you see that kind of depicted in blue in the middle. The microservices and containers, along with the insight services, is the restructuring of applications so that they're 100%, bundled, in and of themselves, and able to be ported to a lot of different cloud infrastructures. So the microservices and container technology is really, part of the beauty of how you take an application, break it down into sizable chunks, and then be able to, assess all the services that you need, whether they be data services, such as our insight services shown here, or other kinds of services that you see depicted in orange, the cloud services integration, and being able to run a common set of services across the entire enterprise is really what a lot of clients are looking for. They don't want to have to, stay married to one set of services. And the other thing that a lot of clients are looking for is the ability to intelligently plug different things together. So the intelligent workflows depicted in pink at the top becomes very pertinent. And so for the folks in the audience that are here today, you're probably thinking, well, how do I fit into an enterprise? And I think the way most, entrepreneurs, most startups kind of look for how they fit into this enterprise is they'll use and ensure they're using hybrid multi-cloud with some kind of microservices container, and then come up with some compelling services that could be, served up to enterprises, served up to others to be able to leverage effectively and be able to integrate into an environment like this. A lot of clients are looking for operational automation. So the more you can automate through AI, the more you can automate through robotic processes, the more you can automate, your infrastructure, the better off you're going to be. And certainly everybody wants everything done secure and private, right? So these are key critical areas that you want to think through if you're a startup to say, how do I fit in this big picture that a lot of the CTOs are kind of pushing within their own organizations. Certainly when we think about AI, I love thinking about, how do I get people to trust my AI? If you look at this AI ladder, this is Mark Knapp's relationship development model. And it really started talking about human relationships. But when you think about what you're doing with artificial intelligence, you really are trying to, build a relationship between a human being and the computer system. Right. So as any normal relationship, you have, your ups and your downs. And so this pyramid kind of depicts some of those ups and downs where you begin and you're coming together by initiating your first impression. And the way we do that with, in a computer relationship is that first impression. You want your computer system to have the right tone, the right personality, the right look and feel, the right colors. And so those are the kinds of things that I tend to think through in terms of initiating that first, impression with my end user. And then you get into experimenting, exploring mutual interests, so you start to look at how do I show an authentic set of, empathy for the end user and starting to understand that end user. And so I maybe gradually move into intensifying the relationship by having multi-step contextual awareness interaction. So an ability to not just provide a single response, but to keep abreast of what the end user is doing, be aware of what's going on with them so I can have that multi-step context awareness all the way into natural interactions, being able to use my AI to address the user in a natural setting with, either voice technology or other kinds of technology, video capabilities, pictures that are out there. And where you really want to be is in the sweet spot at the top of this pyramid where you're bonding with your end user. They trust your system and they appreciate the services being provided by your system. There are differentiated services. And certainly once you get to the top, you want to figure out, how do I stay there? How do I stay there? I don't want to, come down the right-hand side of this pyramid because that can be detrimental to your system. And so, so I think, thinking of ways you enhance the relationship with the end user in your system is something you got to do as you're designing your system. And certainly, a lot of people are concerned about, bias in AI models. And so when I think of, bias detection, certainly at IBM, we have a lot of open scale technology that helps us detect biases. And so I thought I'd play for you a little video today. Let me see if we can pull this up. There it is.
You're going to have to unmute your microphone.
So it's not playing then? So we're going to have to skip the video, I think.
Didn't hear any sound.
I don't think you're able
Okay.
to play a video through on Hopin for it actually to be submitted.
Okay. Well, I have to send everybody then the link to the video, but the video goes on to show, it's all about building a system and having good interactions with your end user and how they kind of track data and they're able to detect biases in the data. And, some of the key messages in the video are it's about being able to have a history of information. So it's not good just to present results to an end user, but to present the results and be able to tell them where was that result derived from. I think that's one of the key critical ingredients that you look for in a bias detection system. And you also want to be, something that's monitoring all your data in an automated fashion. We talked about the need for automation. And so it becomes very important for people to look for, how do I automate this bias detection and have the system alert me when my data is getting a little bit, disorganized or out of whack. Those are the kinds of things that, people are looking for as they're kind of, doing their thing with AI and kind of keeping up with, all the competition in the AI realm.
Very good. So again, audience, this is a great time for you to post your questions in chat. And Amelia, I've got one to start off with from one of our participants. And he wants to know, can AI be accessible for different disabilities?
Can AI be accessible to people with disabilities? The answer to that is yes. I think there's a lot of people even looking at new systems. I was working with one of my clients, I guess it was about a month and a half ago. And part of this, again, COVID impacted all of us. And so what this particular company was, very much kind of, honed in on was, how do we not just provide the ability for people to work from home, but what are the kinds of things we need to take into account when people have disabilities? And some of the things that maybe we take for granted, that you'll be able to, to get assistance the right way, or be able to, plug in your laptop or your system at home in a certain way, really is a bigger challenge for someone with a lot of disabilities. And so we even, we're designing not just, a system, but even, ways to help that individual out. So I think, certainly if people have disabilities, there's a whole lot of ways to think about using AI. Another example was I had seen articles of, there's a lot of people that, can't see, they're blind. And so they use dogs to help them, in their endeavors, walking around and doing things like that. And AI was being used to help train and find perfect matches for people with disabilities and being able to train the dogs to do the kinds of things that needed to be done. And so different flares of use of AI going on everywhere. Maybe even having AI, scanning through emails for an individual and manifesting what's in the email verbally so that the blind individual can see the content of the email and so forth. And then being able to detect anomalies in the email to really, intelligently inform that, individual. So a lot of uses of, AI for people with disabilities.
Gotcha. You might try unsharing your screen, or maybe a treat you can do it for her. So got a question.
How do I do that?
So you should be able to just hit the same button with the TV monitor and X through it, and then that should take away your screen.
Okay.
There you go. All righty, there we go. So question on bias detection. So do these methods, including device settings, or do they just focus on behavioral changes?
I think there's all kinds of stuff out there in AI. I've seen, device changes. I've seen device setting data. I've seen security information changes. And so they look for all kinds of things, and you have to train your AI model for what you want it to look for. And so it's important to understand, what am I really training my system for? I'm a big believer in design thinking, which is an approach you use to kind of analyze the system you're putting in place and collect requirements from your end users. So I think one of the things that I see is there are exercises in design thinking that are specifically targeted at taking some time up front when you're designing your system to see, am I introducing some unintentional bias? What are my primary, my secondary data sources? And am I cognizant of how do I want to approach, my AI, introducing anything that I may not like, moving forward. And so taking that time to design that up front is really, really important. So I would recommend that, if you're thinking about building an AI system to think about and take the time to assess what you're introducing into the marketplace, what reaction it may have, and even have the ability to bounce it by some of your end users to get their reactions, right? Because I think you never really can guess at how someone else is going to react to something until you put it in front of them and let them use it.
Gotcha. Another question in chat: are there any open source anomaly detection software platforms?
Yeah, there's several like open source technologies. I know our OpenScale is built on top of, open source technology. So what we did is, as an IBM company, we looked for open source that was out there. We used a lot of microservices and containers, Kubernetes, sources. And then we built on top of that the OpenScale platform that I was showing before. And so it's a doable thing to take a lot of open source technology and find a way to, to build the kinds of tools and the kinds of techniques that you want to kind of mine through all of your data with. And there's a lot of different tools out there, and you're just going to have to play around with them.
Right. Speaking of which, I recall that one of your colleagues from IBM made a presentation to Tech Titans. It may have been early last year, and he was demonstrating some of the tools that an entrepreneur could get off of your Watson platform, and just kind of build a system. You want to talk about that for a moment and what that is?
Yeah. So our IBM public cloud has a lot of Watson capabilities. I think, back in the year 2011, it was actually Valentine's Day 2011, IBM debuted our Watson technology. And when Watson was first put in place, it could play the game of Jeopardy. So we debuted it on national television, with Alex Trebek playing the game of Jeopardy against a lot of the Jeopardy champions, right? And when the technology first came out, it was this 2,280 CPU core system. It's actually a huge system up in the New York area that we have, and now it sits kind of in the back. It's no longer operational since, we built it back in 2011. But what they did is, when we first implemented it, they trained the system, they ingested data into it, and then they had it playing the game, and it was hugely successful. And I remember a lot of the researchers were excited about their endeavor and their accomplishments with Watson. And the very next thing that we as a company did is we said, okay, we love Watson. It's a great big computer, but we got to make it readily available to people to be able to utilize. And so they took that Watson system and they broke it up into little microservices. Some of them do natural language processing, some of them do video analytics, some of them do, text to speech conversion, some of them do, conversation management, some of them do chatbot, capabilities. And so they took all these, pieces of Watson and broke it up. And now that's what's available on the IBM cloud. Certainly, Amazon, Google all have their own AI capabilities that they've done similar things with. So the intent is you're able to get those capabilities in the cloud and use them within your application. And it's even better if you can run, those kinds of services on a multitude of different platforms. And that's why that hybrid multi-cloud that we talked about, you don't want to have to, if you write a set of, applications and you're using IBM's Watson, you don't want to, only have them running in the IBM Watson platform. You want them to be able to port over to Amazon's platform or Google's platform and have them run successfully on those platforms. And that's what a lot of these new capabilities enable us to do. So we've come a long way from when Watson first came out. Yeah, it's been a while.
Startup entrepreneurs, take heed of what she just said. That may be the most important piece of advice you get today. Build it for multiple platforms. Don't just do one.
Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Hey, Bill, we're getting some interference. Our AV person asked if you have any other tabs open on your browser. because that might be where the interference is coming from. You can just
Is that me? Or?
It's coming from Bill.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I just closed all the other tabs. Is that better?
Try to say something.
I just said I closed all the other tabs.
No, I guess. Can you close your other tabs too, Amelia?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Okay, it's gone. So I guess that worked, but I'll keep you updated.
Okay. I don't see any other. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't see any other questions in chat. I'll give our participants a moment to put one in there. In the meantime, I just want to let everybody know that Tech Titans established an artificial intelligence forum for enterprises, university researchers, and entrepreneurs well over a year ago. We have great programs. They're open to anybody. You don't have to be a member of Tech Titans. And we've had, actually, I think our next program is the convergence of semiconductor technology and AI. We will do kind of a state of AI address later in the year. And a lot of it is B2B, business use cases that we like to demonstrate. It's no sales zone, so don't worry that you're going to get a pitch, from somebody. But you are going to learn and build a network and learn more about AI. So you can go to techtitans.org, sign up for our artificial intelligence forum, notices, and we'll be happy to include you. So one last call for anybody to post a question from Ramelia in chat. Give you just a moment.
So while folks are typing in their question, Bill, I'll add a couple of, plugs in. Certainly for those that are wanting to learn more about design thinking, IBM does make available our badges, so that people could take courses. We offer our practitioner badge out available to anyone. So all you have to do is visit ibm.com, and then you'll get a little, search field, and you just type, design thinking practitioner, and it'll pull you into that, part of the platform, and you can, gain your own knowledge and your own badges on design thinking. There's also capabilities to learn about some of the Watson services out there. So, again, a lot of training. We just made our platform available to P-Tech, the young students at different schools that are, high school students targeted by different companies. And certainly IBM is one of the companies that, helps the P-Tech schools throughout the nation. And we make our open P-Tech platform available for anyone to come in and be able to pick up coursework on Watson, on AI, on blockchain, on, design thinking and so forth. So, a lot of wonderful resources that are readily available to, to startups today.
Very cool. Well, Ramelia, we thank you very much for your time today and all your wisdom and advice. It's great for all the entrepreneurs that are out there in startup land. And I want to thank the DEC and the organizers of Dallas Startup Week for including us here today. And thank you for all the participants who joined us. So with that, have a good day. We're adjourned.
Thank you for having me, Bill. Thank you all.
Take care. Bye.
Mm-hmm.